Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Sorts of You Topics. I'm your host, of course, Say Joe 21 Love. Here today in the podcast talking about NBA All-Star Week and a interesting card, which was UFC 298. Give my thoughts on UFC 300, which I think we can agree is a very good card. As far as UFC 300, though, I think we can agree it's the main event. Much how UFC 200. Now, UFC 200 was obviously affected by injuries and such, in which the main event, all due respect to Amanda Nunes and Misha Tate, that did not feel like a UFC 200 main event. But nonetheless, it was a fun fight for what it was. But I think we can agree. Wanderlei Silva inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. We'll talk a little bit about him. Some football news and stuff. Get on to. But speaking of football news, I hate to start it like this, but it happened literally after I had uploaded stuff for last week's episode. And I don't want to get too much into it, but so Kansas City Chiefs, the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, who won their third Super Bowl in the last 5-6 seasons, had their victory parade or ceremony in a way last week. And it's always supposed to mean a time of celebration, in which our society today is messed up. It's messed up and it needs to change. So last week there was a shooting at this parade, ceremony, etc. And one lost their life and a number of people were injured. And look, regarding and with the way it sounded, all the Chiefs players and their families were okay. But nonetheless, the fact is, first of all, you may love the Chiefs, you may hate the Chiefs, you may be tired of the Chiefs with the run they're on. Nonetheless, this is just not needed. Not needed ever. It's ridiculous. Now, as someone who's taken some communication classes and start to speculate ways in the class as to why or who we should actually be, how to solve the mystery at its core, how to prevent it at its core. The reality is, some people are, unfortunately, some people are ill. And grudges, whatever, it's not needed. And there just needs to be a way for as a society to fix this, because it's not needed. Doesn't have a place anywhere. Doesn't. I don't know what to say. It's just, yeah. Hearts, prayers, and thoughts out to all the families of the one that lost her life, and the one that, or the many that were injured. Yeah. Hope they all have smooth recoveries, but yeah, it sucks. Now, on to some other quick NFL news before we get into other sports news. So, last week at NFL Honors, or I should say 2 weeks ago, for NFL Honors, it was hefty for the Chicago Bears, hence Julius Peppers, Devin Hester, Mongo getting inducted as well. Now, Ryan Poles has done some improvements, I think we can say, from Ryan Pace as far as trades and working around players and such. Trying to build a new foundation in Chicago. And if he hits these 2 top 10 picks that they've gotten since the Bryce Young, basically, for a DJ Moore trade, then he'll be certainly loved in Chicago. But Eddie Jackson and Cody Whitehair, 2 very interesting veterans who were played key roles, I would say, in the Bears' last 2 playoff trips back in 2020 and 2018. Cody was very good his first couple seasons in the league when he was healthy, and then since then he's just not quite been the same. He's been flexing at guard and center, but yeah, he's not been the same. He's been an interchangeable piece, and cap space, over $9 million they can get back by releasing him. So yeah, I believe someone will pick him up, obviously, but yeah. And Eddie Jackson, definitely a bigger one. A. Jackson, who's been a star for that defense for a number of years, he was also released. Now, he's been injury prone a bit the last couple seasons, so hasn't really gotten the production we're expecting when they gave him a decent deal, but kind of how things go sometimes. But yeah, another guy I see pick up. Shed light on it however you want, but just Fields unfollow the Bears on Twitter or Instagram. I mean, look, there's been oohs and ahs about whether the Bears are going to trade Fields, get Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, or trade that number 1 pick, keep Fields, and figure out something. But yeah, now again, we still have a month. Or 2 months actually till draft. So this could easily be water in the bridge, but we'll see. Just something in, I guess. The NBA All-Star break, which was this weekend, was, I'd say, an eventful sorts one. So, first of all, I think we can definitely agree. Like the NFL Pro Bowl, the skills competitions for the All-Star Week are definitely better. Definitely better how they've been the last number of years. I mean, now, Pro Bowl skills showdown for the NFL is very fun. I wouldn't say that the NBA All-Stars skill showdown are as fun, but still a bit intriguing. It's like the dunk contest has trimmed down. Matt McClung, although I will say, has been doing very well last 2 times, winning it the last 2 times. Almost looked like he was going to get cheated out of not winning this season or this year, but alas, he won. Dame won the 3-point contest again. So yeah. Now, where does this lead to? Think we can agree. Looking at the score of the NBA All-Star game, 211. 211 to 186. It's like 400 points in the All-Star game. At least almost. But literally almost 400 points in the All-Star game. It's like immediately or almost immediately after, a video popped up, of Kobe Bryant in an interview from a number of years ago, talking about how the All-Star game needs to be improved. It used to be competitive. He always played good and played competitive in the All-Star game, but lately, a number of parameters have affected throughout the years. The rules, obviously, defense has been less lenient as far as rules, so you expect to see more as far as regular season. The will to play it. Hey. The one thing, it's weird, but the one thing that the NBA All-Star Game has over the Pro Bowl, basically, is that all their stars play. Basically, because it's in the regular season. Whereas the last number of years, so you have, it used to be where legitimately, if you had an injury or you play in the Super Bowl, then you wouldn't play in the Pro Bowl. But now you see a lot more players budding out of the Pro Bowl for whatever reason. And yeah. The best thing about NBA All-Star Week pretty much was hearing TNT crew again. Ernie, Shaq, Charles Barkley, Kenny, who should be, I'll keep saying it and saying it again because we all know it's true, who should be calling the NBA Finals, but are not. It should be. But we get just now Jokic did make some noise with what he said. A little bit of noise, not too much, but it gets people thinking. As he was told in an interview, or asked in an interview, because he and Luka, very good friends. Very good friends. So he was asked about the possibility of them playing together. And he said, I'm not sure. He said he doesn't want to leave Denver because he likes it there. But then he said that if Luka gets pissed off in Dallas, he can come on over. So that's just a little thing that Mark Cuban, Jason Kidd should be aware of. Because we love Luka and we love Jokic, but the fact is, Luka, we know, wants to win a championship. And he's been to in Western Conference Finals but he has not been to an NBA Finals. We know he wants championship, and we know how cool he and Jokic are. So, I mean, it would be fun to see. Either way, it'd be fun to see them play together. I'd rather want to see Jokic in Dallas, but if he says he doesn't want to play outside of Denver, then there's that. So, UFC 298. UFC 298. Now, before I get into the three interesting fights that headline the card, talk about this guy, this veteran, this legend who got his praise, very rightfully so. On Saturday night. That was Mr. Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei Silva, the axe murderer. Wanderlei, one of my all-time favorites. Wanderlei Silva, taking his rightful place as part of the pioneer wing of the Hall of Fame. Second member of this year, I believe, next to Frankie Edgar. Nonetheless, well deserved. Wanderlei always was one of those fighters who you just saw him and knew he loved to slug it out. Knew that he was one of those guys that loved to throw caution to the wind and see who's the best. So yeah, it's like and he had so I didn't see his fights before he went to Pride in the UFC, but no, he fought Tito. So he lost to Tito, he lost to Vitor early in the UFC. Tito fought the light heavyweight title, which Tito began his run. But then Wanderlei became a legend really in Pride, winning that middleweight title. Some great fight, some great showdowns with Mirko Krukop, some beatdowns and on Quinn Jackson. Obviously, Quinn would get Rampage, would get his revenge in the UFC, but get the point there. I mean, yeah, it's fun stuff when he would find Pride. When he came back to UFC, he was back to guns blazing. His first fight back in UFC was a great fight versus Chuck Liddell, which could have gone either way, but Chuck did enough to get the win. And then followed up, a brutal first round knockout of Keith Jardine in under a minute before getting knocked out by Rampage, but they would have a great fight versus Rich Franklin before finally moving down kind of felt like, I think we can agree, 185 pretty much felt like his promoted weight class. You know, he beat Michael Bisping. Looked like he was, you know, Akiyama, but fight fell through. Lost in a very hyped fight for Chris Lieben. You know, beats Kung Lee. I mean, Rich Franklin. You know, back and forth before. It sucks that we didn't get that Chael Sonnen Wanderlei Silva fight in the UFC. But we got in Bellator years later. But nonetheless, at least Wanderlei went out on his own terms in the UFC, defeating Brian Sand. It was a hectic, fun fight. And yeah, in Japan. So, yeah. One of my favorites. Fun to see. Yeah. Well deserved for Wanderlei. I even have my only I'm not sure how many UFC action figures there is actually. But I know my dad gave me only 2 UFC action figures, which were Chuck Liddell and Wanderlei. And yeah, fun to see him be inducted. He's one of those guys, obviously, kind of wish he won one more title, maybe in the UFC, but this is how things go. Pride, legend, fun fighter in the UFC, so well deserved. Well deserved. UFC 298 as well. So 3 fun fights headlined the show, in which we had Murad Davishali. Sorry for butchering the name, but against Henry Cejudo. That fight was kind of belts, as Murad is the training partner of former UFC bantamweight champion Funkmaster Aljamain Sterling, who's moved up to 145. Tried to test himself at featherweight. We had Robert Whittaker versus Paul Costa. Intriguing fight in the co-main. Yeah, in the main event we had one of the greatest of all time in Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilir Tapura. See how he figures out in the main event, but yeah. First off, Murad, hell of a job. Took it to Henry Cejudo. Actually took the former gold medalist down, and hell of a job by him. Hell of a stint for Murad. Came into his fight number 2. Certainly would love to see, because the rematch is still come with Sean O'Malley and Chito Vera. However, the winner facing Murad, I think that is definitely a thing on the radar. Certainly would be fun to see. Then the co-main event. This was definitely the most intriguing fight on the card with Bobby Knuckles versus Paul Costa. Paul Costa, we know he's a specimen. We know he can, how he started in the UFC as a monster. But after he lost to Adesanya, has quite been there. So, but this was a fun fight for what it was versus Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whitaker. We know Robert, former middleweight champion, would obviously be a fight to look out for in a rematch versus Dricus du Plessis, even though he called out Adesanya. But I will say, hell of a job by Whitaker to survive after that big wheel kick by Paul Costa. I mean, a guy that's physically imposing like that, seeing him do that, that's something. But hell of a job by Whitaker, applying pressure, weakening Costa, and ultimately getting the decision. Hell of a job by him. For him and Mira. So yeah, it's totally possible. Well, if the next fight to make is Adesanya versus DDP, what I would love to see as well be Sean Strickland versus Robert Whitaker. That's a unique fight to make, I would say. So we'll see. Then main events. We have a new UFC featherweight champion, Yuri Tapura. Now 15-0, knocked out, taking out Alexander Volkanovski, the great, it's fair to say, after getting knocked out by Islam Makhachev, his last fight in the fall, I think we can definitely agree that we were worried about the timeline for this fight. Maybe resting for a bit after getting stopped like that, but he wanted to fight, and ultimately it cost him the strap, and that's how it goes. Spain has or sorta has a UFC champion, so yeah, going good. So Max Holloway, I know he's gonna fight for the BMF belt versus Justin Gaethje, but definitely opens the door for him to challenge for the title again. Certainly opens the door. I did want to speak upon as it was announced by Dana White. So it was announced that the UFC 300 main event would be new UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira, who beat Yuri Prochazka in his last fight. Now is going to fight another former champion, Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill, the guy who then vacated because of brutal injury, but apparently now he's back. So he's going to attempt to take title from new champion Alex Pereira. 2 fights in the light heavyweight division, 2-0 against Jan Blachowicz and Yuri Prochazka. See how he goes against another former champion, Jamal Hill. But I think we can all agree that while it's a good fight, a fun fight, it doesn't feel like a UFC 300 main event. Now, look, Dana, there were probably ways he wanted to milk around with this UFC 300 main event. Obviously, there's parameters. John Jones is hurt. Maybe he would like to do something if Jones was healthy. Or McGregor. McGregor and Chandler's Ultimate Fighter season ended in the fall? And look, Conor McGregor, love him or hate him, Dana said it best. Conor's the most over person or polarizing person for the UFC. Most money maker there is. He's going to ask for a bargain price for his return. Now, I know he heard that in a video he said he wants to make his return in June. We'll see, but certain parameters that I think Dana White obviously had to deal with. And yeah, it is what it is. One more note though, as far as NBA is concerned, since we're in the All-Star break, Celtics, Timberwolves, the two teams sitting atop their conferences. Minnesota atop of the West, Boston atop of the East. Certainly a question. Now they're in for the home stretch for the regular season. Can they both finish on top? It's obviously... You obviously trust Boston more with the talent, the array in the East. It's not going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. But Timberwolves definitely have a tougher road in the West, especially when you got a healthy Clippers team, Denver Nuggets, the reigning champions, and a very young, very hungry Oklahoma City Thunder team. It's going to be tough. But we'll see. Anyways, guys, thank you all for joining me. I'm your host, Joe Two in Love. Of course, if you like the video, no drill. Click that like button, leave a thumbs up, subscribe somewhere here in this area. But you guys know the drill. Thank you guys all. Appreciate it. See you guys next time. Adios. Peace.